Okay, so I got a phone call which interrupted my recording, which means there's going to be a couple videos today. So where was I? Poor Cynthia, poor all of them. She had one small satisfaction. Dragon, who had been admitted after she was safely caged, had eaten his bowl of cat food greedily, sleeping powder and all, purring as he licked the last scraps from the bottom. Billy was looking at the cage. There, he cried. It walked. I saw it. I told you it was all right. He started up from his chair. Billy, stay in your place and eat your stew, said Mr. Fitzgibbon. The mouse can wait. Speaking of mice, said Mr. Fitzgibbon, who had driven to town that afternoon. There was quite a stir today at the Henderson's hardware store. About mice? No, but nearly about rats. I went in to order the new linchpin, and there was quite a group there talking about an odd thing that had happened. It seems that 6 or 7 rats had got themselves electrocuted just there a few days ago. Very strange. Henderson sells motors. He has a whole shelf of them. The rats, for some reason, had got onto the shelf. He says it looked as if they were fooling with one of the motors, trying to move it. That's a new one, said Paul. Rats stealing motors? They weren't really, of course. Anyway, it happened during the night when Henderson, came into the shop in the morning. He tried to turn on the lights and the fuse was blown. He found the rats all grouped around the motor. It had been left plugged in, though it was turned off. They must have been gnawing at the insulation for some reason. At least that's what he thinks. They caused a short circuit and all bunched together like the current. Sounded like someone was at the door. Hold on. Okay. They caused a short circuit and all bunched together like that. The current went through them and killed a lot. Pretty good kind of rat trap, I'd say, Miss Fitzgibbon remarked. Miss Frisbee was now listening to the conversation very closely. Dragon had stretched out on the floor looking drowsy. Wait, said Mr. Fitzgibbon. That's only the beginning. It seems that the local weekly was hard up for news, and they heard about it and sent their reporter over. Fred Smith, said Miss Fitzgibbon. Yeah, Fred wrote a little article about it with the headline, Mechanized Rats Invade Hardware Store, something like that. Well, it attracted more attention than he expected. The next thing they knew, believe it or not, the federal government got into it, and they sent a squad over there from the Public Health Service with a truckload of equipment. Just on account of 7 rats, said Billy. They should send the truck over here. We've got more than that. That's what I said, Mr. Fitzgibbon went on. And do you know, they're going to. I was joking, of course, but the man in charge of the group didn't take it as a joke at all. He wanted to know where the farm was, how far away, how many acres, what I raised, how many rats I thought were there. He acted really interested. It seems they wanted to examine the dead rats at Henderson's, but they couldn't. He'd already sent them to the town dump and they were incinerated. I never heard of such a thing, said Mrs. Fitzgibbons. All that fuss over a few dead rats. I have, said Paul, and I bet I know what they're after. What? They think the rats have rabies. They don't like to say it because it makes people panicky. What's rabies? Asked Billy. It's a disease, said Mr. Fitzgibbon, a very bad one spread by animals. You know, Paul, I think you're probably right. That would explain why the Public Health Service is in it, epidemic control anyway. They're planning to check on the rats all over this area. Don't you remember, Paul said, a few years ago when everybody had to lock up their dogs and some people were shooting every dog they saw? That's why they kept it quiet until they were sure. And another thing, they taught us in vet course in school that when an animal starts acting strange, it might be a sign of rabies. Well, chewing electrical wires, that's strange enough. And they think some rats might be infected, Miss Fitzgibbon sounded worried. I suppose they must, said Miss Fitzgibbon, though they never mentioned rabies at all. When are they coming? Day after tomorrow, Saturday morning. The man in charge, a doctor somebody, said they had some more checking to do in town tomorrow. They're coming with an extermination truck, cyanide gas, I think. I can tell them where to look, Paul said. Me too, said Billy, under the rose bush. That's right, said Mr. Fitzgibbon. In fact, they'll probably want to bulldoze that bush out of there. I can do that with my tractor. Bulldoze my rose bush, said Mrs. Fitzgibbon indignantly. They will not. Look at it this way, her husband said. I've got to get rid of those rats anyway. I've already decided to. They're stealing too much feed. Seeds, too. More all the time. If I paid an exterminator to do it, he'd charge a couple $100. If the government will do it for free, why shouldn't we let them? Well, said Miss Fitzgibbon, still not soothed. Then they can spend the money to buy me some new rose bushes. That's just what I had in mind, said Mr. Fitzgibbon with a smile, and maybe some lilacs, too. Miss Fitzgibbon had always wanted a lilac bush. They were her favorite shrub. Miss Frisbee did not believe at all that it was the rabies the men were looking for. She wished Mr. Fitzgibbon had been able to remember the name of the doctor somebody, and now she had another urgent reason to get out of the cage. Somehow she had to warn Nicodemus. Dragon slept on the kitchen floor. Escape. At 10 by the kitchen clock, the Fitzgibbons went to bed. Dragon was put out, the doors locked, the lights turned off, and the first of these things was done by Billy, or instruction from his mother. Not without some difficulty, he opened the door. Come on, Dragon, out. He won't get up. I've never seen such a lazy cat. He gets worse every day. Finally, Dragon, protesting with one